we're adding in elements of being self-disciplined, self-aware, making mistakes and owning them. I mean, those skills are transferable, they matter, and they're also going to be what are employable and what are going to get you into college. So all of these things are not separate. They are completely intertwined and they can't be disentangled.
Hi, I'm Lydia Thompson, and I am the host of Counselor Off the Clock and a licensed counselor. My aim is to make mental health conversations more accessible and to keep you company while you grow. Kate Hickey joins us on this episode. She is an author, educator, mom, and future TED Talk speaker. We are breaking down what social emotional learning looks like in the classroom and how the foundations of SEL lead to future success for your child. We break down some of the myths of social emotional learning and actually get into a great conversation about failure towards the end of the episode. If you're loving this podcast, subscribe, give us a rating. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Counselor Off the Clock. I hope you can get comfortable because we are off the clock. Today on the podcast, Kate Hickey. Now, when I asked her to be on the podcast, we weren't friends. Now, we are. In the brief time I've known her, I have read her book, Have Fun, Be Safe, I Love You. And now I think I really get who she is and her message to the world. Today we're talking about social emotional learning. And I'm so thrilled to have you on the podcast. Who knows where this conversation is going to go?
This facts.
Along for the ride today. Well, before we get started, I kind of want to know, I'm surprising you with this question.
Okay.
What do you do when you're off the clock?
Oh, man. Think about gardening, and what plants I want to plant. I've been living in Spain for 5 years. We just moved back about a year ago, my family and I. So I have lived these 5 years without a garden and without an outside space. So I'm pretty hype and nerdy on some plants right now.
Okay. Do you have like planters? Do you have like a garden you tilled up?
All of it.
All of it.
No vegetables, no herbs yet, but yeah, I just love gardening now.
Then what are you growing?
Gosh, I just planted a tree, like a Japanese maple. I just, just all of this. I had a blank slate in my house, so I'm excited to get in the garden.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's a great time for it.
Thing that old people say.
Exactly.
But here we are.
When I started saying I like watching the birds, I was like...
Yeah. No, next day you're just like, wait, what, a titmouse? What's happening?
Yeah, I downloaded a bird app on my phone to track the birds
old.
that come to my feeder.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Good times.
I couldn't believe it, honestly.
Yeah.
I was like, it came too soon.
It's a marker, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, our topic today, anything else you want to talk about before we get started?
No, let's dig in. I'm excited. I can talk about this all day. So.
I know. I was like, we got to dig into the topic early.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we just like chill and talk for a while, but now I'm like, we got to talk about this.
Let's.
Now.
All right.
Can you define for our listeners social emotional learning?
Yeah, so social emotional learning is, I kind of like to start from like reverse engineer it. So if we think about where the companies are hiring, what skills they're hiring for right now, right? We want people that can manage themselves. We want people that are autonomous, that don't need to be handheld. We want leaders. We want innovative thinkers. We want people that are on time and show up. All of these little things that actually are big things. So social emotional learning is kind of the school version of that, right? So think self-discipline, self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making. There are 5 pillars of social emotional learning. I think I've hit them all. Social awareness, kind of crafting who you are as a person and not necessarily as a student.
That's great. I mean, when I was a student, it was like, why are we learning the Pythagorean theorem?
Yeah.
Or why are we learning these things when we should be learning things that do translate into friends. A job? Yes.
How to leverage a relationship.
Yes.
How to make a relationship.
Yes.
imagine now we've got cell phones as that barrier. So it was already hard for us as, I'm 42. So that was hard for me at that time. It's harder now because cell phones are in the way. So having SEL in a classroom is just so important. And we're right now caught up on curriculum and testing. So it's something that we're seeing needs to come back.
Yeah. So apart from being an author and a speaker and all the great things that you do, you're also an educator.
I am an educator. That's my number one job besides being a mom. And I am the most proud of my time in the classroom and my kids. My kids, my biological kids and my kids' kids. It's hard I say my school kids or my not biological children. But
my
yes.
kids.
Yeah.
I raised a kid.
Yeah.
So how does that look in the classroom with you right now?
Well, I'll tell you what it's not. And I think this is where some people kind of shy away from what SEL is. They think that it's this kumbaya, sit around in a circle and we're talking about counseling and, your mental health. And it's not that.
Yeah.
It is belonging. It's feeling like you matter to someone else. Mm-hmm. It is learning how to understand yourself and how to build on your own strengths and how to improve some of the things that you need to work on as a person. People get the wrong idea sometimes about social emotional learning. If they don't know, they're thinking that it's kind of this woo-woo. I do not have a degree or a PhD in counseling. I am not a psychologist. This is me as a classroom teacher trying to make you feel safe enough to learn with me. Yeah. It's making you feel like when you were absent that we missed you. Yeah. That when you don't have any friends and you feel alone, that when you come into my room, you feel good about yourself and you have high self-esteem. Because if you can't learn if you have all of those things that aren't happening. Yeah. You can't learn the Pythagorean theorem, which is hard when you feel loved, if you don't feel like that your presence is important to other people and that you matter.
Yeah, I know that the teachers that made the biggest differences my life.
Yeah.
One of which I would like to have on the podcast who helped me get into this field. I
know this person, so it's hard for me not to smile and laugh. Because
they cared about me.
Yeah, that's right.
When I walked in the room, she would look at me and she'd go, "You don't feel so good, do you today, Lydia?" She's like, "You're a little pale today." I'm like, "Well, I'm pale every day, but especially today." And she was in tune with her students, and she made a huge difference on me. Yeah. And the biggest difference between that and one of my teachers, I'm thinking of him in my head. I'm like, he hated me. And you know what? I did not like his class at all. And it makes a huge difference who is teaching the class. Yeah. And
it's the same thing in the work environment. I mean, you work for a boss that you respect, that you like, and you don't work as hard for somebody you don't respect. It's the exact same, it's the same concept. It's just in the classroom. And I think a question for me to you is, isn't it sad that you have one teacher in your life that you can think of like that? Most people will say, "Oh, I have this one teacher." And if you look at the numbers, we've had like 50 teachers over the course of our education. Why do you have one? Why is one teacher the only one you can think of? In my mind, you should have 30 teachers that did that for you. That's kind of what SEL is, I guess, in a nutshell. It's also realizing that these students have voice and giving them agency and having their diversity be celebrated in the classroom. So I'm not the sage on the stage up here going like, blah, blah, Spanish, I know everything. It's also like, hey, student, I know that you lived in these other countries. Tell me more about what that was like for you and in those cultures. And how do you navigate like a blended family of cultures? I have some kids that have a French dad and a Spanish mom or an Indian, grandparents, and now they've lived here and they're the first generation to live in the States. I mean, all of that color needs to be brought into the classroom, and kind of that's what SEL is as well. It's kind of a big, all-encompassing idea set. Gosh, that's a really crap way to put it, but
it's a big thing.
It's a big thing. It is, though. I don't. It's hard to articulate because I think it's also just a feeling. It's a feeling, and kids can describe it. They'll be like, "Oh, I just love to be in there. Yeah. It's my favorite class. I love to be in there." And then you say, "Why?" And they're like, "Because they care." That's the first thing a student will say, because they care. But what caring looks like is not me bringing you donuts and us hanging out. It's about the quality of education is the same. We're not dumbing anything down. We're not taking, breaks for a week to just hang out and sit down and take naps and listen to no, none of that. What it is you can maintain a high level of integrity within the content, and you can still have a classroom where the student really matters.
Yeah, and probably the content lands differently.
Oh,
when the foundation is I care.
Yeah.
And I value you.
Yeah. And I value you as a part, as in your learning process, right? Because so many kids are having the problem now with, why do I care? Why am I never going to learn this again?
Right.
And I have a hard time saying that you will, because you won't.
And now
Low-key, I never used the Pythagorean theorem nor SOHCAHTOA. I mean, as grown people, we don't use a lot of the skills that we practice in high school.
And even now, I'm like, even more now, when they have access to AI, they have access to the internet constantly. Why would they ever need to solve doing any mental math?
Do you hear that out there? It's true.
Yeah.
Why do I need to know this? And the answer is you don't. But you need to practice the skill of doing something that's hard so that you can do that in your future. And also, as teachers, that's where SEL becomes so important, because it's, okay, why do we need to learn this? I'm going to turn that back to you. What is a way that we can make this relevant for us in the room? And if it's not relevant, then how can we push through that and get through that together if you don't find that it's relevant? But if you don't have that relationship, that's not a conversation you can have.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so back it up a little bit. So I get that social emotional learning is like a theoretical stance almost. Like it's practical and it's also, I would say, a way of being.
It is.
Is that taught to teachers?
More and more, we're learning this now in school. It's tricky because the research is still kind of catching up with where we know we need to be. And so, a lot of counties and districts and states and legislators want to see the numbers. So it's hard to equate some of this with numbers. But we're finding that classrooms that have, where you have student efficacy and where you have agency, that those students are 7 times more likely to be academically successful than others. So there's research out there that's coming out. I don't have those numbers on the top of my head. That's one. But yes, teachers are learning more and more about it. But again, it's a practice that's been around. It just didn't have a name necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're having to be a lot more intentional around the definition, as well as practices, what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah. So are you aware of like the other teachers? Like you guys make eye contact in the hall?
We know who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the kids know who we are. And the principal knows who we all are.
Yeah.
And the parents know who we are. They're the parent that gives you a hug and says, thank you for saving my child.
Yeah.
You're the only reason that my child comes to school. I mean, this is like a little bit, I'm not trying to flex. What I'm trying to say is that it's reinforced throughout everything that we do. And it also becomes more naturally to certain people and to certain teachers. And so it's something that we're working on, how do we grow a teacher that's amazing at their content, but maybe needs a little bit more work in SEL. So how can we marry those two things? I mean, my content is, my content level is great. Are there teachers out there that are better? There's Spanish 4 AP teachers that are killing the game. Yes.
Totally.
Right. So it's a matter of, kind of imparting these skills on people that need them as well. The teachers that maybe this isn't their wheelhouse. They're not necessarily attuned emotionally to and knowing how to do that. It's something you have to practice, like classroom management is, like anything in any job is.
Yeah.
Because you have to be intentional.
Yeah. You do have to be intentional, because it actually takes, I think, for both of our jobs, it takes working on myself and being aware of myself and being aware of others and my impact on others. And that ownership of here's my impact on others in order to be present for them and be what they need in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where they walk in and they're not looking great.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can tell they're off.
Yeah.
You're in tune enough to know.
Every day.
The vibe is off.
Every day.
every day the
My
vibe
life.
is off.
No, that's just my life every day is just being
Yeah.
like, are you okay? Let's go in the hallway. Let's do a walk. Let's chat. Let's figure this out.
Yeah. So can you speak to parents who have concerns of maybe like this is distracting from the material? You are a teacher. You should teach. Now, I don't believe this, but I have heard rumblings
Yeah.
of you're a teacher. You should teach. Do what you're supposed to do. So what would you say to those parents?
I would say to those parents that if we are trying to build a culture and well-rounded graduates, we need to teach them skills like, I'll give you an example. This happens to me every day, talking to my colleagues, standing there having a one-on-one conversation that is either private or it's two adults talking. Every day I'll be interrupted by a kid. Can I get some water? Can I go to the bathroom? And I have to stop and say, hey, so-and-so, let's think about that. Is that the best time for you to ask me whenever I'm speaking to another adult and you're interrupting? Like, is your water, like, are you gonna die? No, I'm sorry. And it's having those little conversations. That's what SEL is. That's you having the self-awareness to say, ooh, sorry, Hickey, that wasn't the best move for me right at that moment. I apologize. And then apologizing, right?
Yeah.
So we're practicing being good people, and because what I don't want to happen is that you graduate high school, I never taught you that skill, and you think you are so important that you go between two bosses or to anyone and go, excuse me, I'm heading out 5 minutes early. I've got to go get to my workout class.
Yeah.
Inappropriate. So if
Right.
we don't pause as teachers and have those little miniature conversations that are so important to your development as a person, I'm graduating kids that can speak 6 languages, that know all of the things from all the AP courses, but you are not functioning well in society. And you have, maybe you have a lot of the other mental health issues that we're talking about. So that's what I would say to a parent.
Yeah. Yeah, you want them to be well equipped to be successful in the future.
Yes.
This is the way that we do it.
And our content is super important, and that's
Yeah.
not going away.
Yeah.
We're adding in elements of being self-disciplined, self-aware, making mistakes and owning them. I mean, those skills are transferable, they matter, and they're also going to be what are employable and what are going to get you into college. So all of these things are not separate. They are completely intertwined, and they can't be disentangled. I think that's an important part of what SEL is.
Yeah.
It's the everyday stuff. It's, Miss Hickey, I didn't do my homework. Okay, tell me why. Well, I had baseball until like 10 o'clock, and then I had to go home and I had to do this homework. Okay, so you didn't do my homework. No, because I have this test. Okay, fair enough. Kind of breaking it down for the kid. Why did you make those decisions? Oh, well, okay, well, the math test is important. What could you have done differently that is telling me, instead of telling me now, what's a different decision you could have made? Oh, yeah, you're right. Like, could have emailed you last night. Brilliant. Great idea. And so how would I have received that email last night? Or would I? No, you wouldn't have, but you would have seen it in the morning. You would have known that I cared about my homework, but I was out of time.
Yeah.
And I go, great. You know what? You have a lot of cookies in the jar with me. You're super respectful in class. All of those things matter. Your communication and honesty, I appreciate.
Yeah.
So yes, your homework is going to be extended for 24 hours this time, because you were honest, because you owned it, and we're learning here. We're practicing for the big leagues, right? So that's another piece of SEL that we can that's intertwined. See, so it's not I think what people think it is. I'll leave it like there.
Well, I think it's creating the world and reflecting it in an adolescent's everyday life.
Yeah.
And if we have school and it's a bubble and what they are praised for is only academics, have I just hit something for you?
Yes.
What they're only praised for academics,
right.
they get out into the world and they go, shit,
Yeah.
I don't have friends.
Yeah.
I can't get a boyfriend.
I'm anxious.
I'm so anxious. How do I do my taxes?
And why am I living this life that my parents set up for me when this isn't what I want?
Yeah. So what came up for you when I
This is really bad because I'm out of fun tickets. This is late in the school year, so us teachers are burned out and the wheels are off because the kids are wild right now. But I think, is the question like, what would I say to parents?
Sure.
Well, I think for starters, I would say that the best thing that you can do for your child is to listen to them and to stop telling them how it was for you. That's something that I think a lot of parents don't know what else to do or say. And so they start going, well, when I was, well, you see what I did. It doesn't matter what you did. That was a different time.
Yeah.
This time is so completely different now for these kids.
Yeah.
It is so much harder to be a student now.
Yeah.
If you could walk the halls of a high school now, it is absolutely nothing like when you went to high school for us.
No.
Nothing. It is so much harder.
So
the
hard.
level of excellence is absolutely insane. And if you've ever done homework with a second grader, you know, like, oh my gosh, I never learned this stuff until I was like in 8th grade. And you can't even help your second grader with homework. Imagine them in high school, which is now like college.
Yeah.
And think of it from like a sports reference. I can't believe I'm doing a sports reference. I hope my husband's listening. But if you think about like a middle school game, you're seeing the scoreboard be like what you had in college. You're seeing the cheerleaders do stunts from like, you're seeing standing fulls from cheerleaders, okay? And they're in middle school.
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Middle school. So what happens? Everything is leveling up. So the excellence now is out of control.
And the development has stayed exactly the
same. Their brain's
Oh my
the same, and it's so it's not fair.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? Why
No
did I
wonder
land here?
they're sitting in my office so often.
Yeah.
Is because they are not receiving the support that they need to have and achieve the highest levels that they want to. And they're processing failure and they're processing rejection.
Yeah.
And then they're talking to their parents and their parents are saying, well, when
what I
I
did.
was your age.
That kills me.
And listen, I understand from sitting with so many parents, you're just trying to connect.
Yeah.
You're trying to help.
And you're trying to do
what
anything
it
'cause
does
they're turds.
is exactly what it does is like it immediately turns their ears off to go, you're not listening and you're never going to get it.
You're never going to.
Because you're not listening to me.
Right. And we're not the same. And so you would
We're
have
not
done
the
that with
same.
your boyfriend, or you would have told Mr. Magoo this. Well, this isn't that at all. It's not even close. And so my best advice for parents, and I have to take this advice too. It's not like it's easy for any of us because they're, teen. I have 2 teenagers myself. They're 12 and 14. So I'll leave them out of this. But my point is to listen and to make your house and your car and your car ride a special place of warmth and listening to understand and listening all the way through and then asking, oh, really? Why? Oh, gosh, I can see why. Oh, tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me how I can help you. Tell me what I can do for you.
Do you even want my help?
Do you want my help? Do you want me to listen? Do you want my advice? I have a chapter of that in my book, and it's basically, and I ask this to my daughter all the time. Do you want my help? Do you want my advice? Do you want me to listen? And those are the questions that we need to be asking. And I think as parents, our instinct is to just give help and jump in and ask, how was your day? How was your day? Listen, they're tired. That's the last thing. How was your day? Fine. It's the same thing when you get home from work. How was your day? Fine. I mean, we all say the same kind of canned answers.
Yeah.
It's asking them, oh, who did you help? Talking about your day. A lot of times I'll say, gosh, I had this student. It was really hard for me and I don't know what to do. And I just feel bad. How would you approach the situation? Asking them for their input as opposed to me putting it back on them.
Yeah.
And seeing how they would broach the subject and making them feel like they matter in your world, giving themselves, that's what's building their self-esteem, is they're mattering in my world.
Yeah.
And feeling like they can help me and that they're valued. I sit in too many parent meetings where they are just talking at me the whole time. And I just say, excuse me, parent, can I hear from your student? They're just going on, and we haven't listened to the way the student's feeling. So listening.
Yeah.
That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah, I usually say, if you're analyzing your conversations with your teenager, and it's usually you talking 80 to 90% and them 10 to 20%.
Flip it. Yeah.
Shut up. And just listen.
Yes.
And ask. Ask not to try to catch them in anything.
No.
Not listening so that you can figure out what's going on with them. Listen because You want them to be a safe space. You want to be a safe space for them.
Yeah. And they're going to stop talking to you. That's what's going to happen.
That's the sad
And they're
part.
going to start talking to their friends, and their friends' advice is not going to be the best, or they're not going to have anyone listening to them.
Yeah.
The tricky part is also timing with teenagers, and I think that's something that we can play with as parents a little bit more. After school is not going to be the best time necessarily to talk to your kid. Sometimes it will be. Some kids are good at that time. Some aren't. Some need to decompress. I need, we call it shell time in my house. I need to be in my shell for like an hour to get my batteries like back, and then we can dinner. I'm down. Now one of my kids is the opposite. Like they want to get in the car, blah, like unload, and then my other one wants to talk at dinner. So you got to, the timing is also really, really important, I think.
Yeah.
And honoring that for them.
It's less about your timing as a parent and more about their timing.
Yeah, and keeping yourself available and around.
Yeah.
Keeping yourself around and trying to keep the door open and keep popping in. Keep opening the door. Hey, one more thing. I'm going to go run and get a Sonic. Hey, one more thing. I'm going to go. Hey, just involving them. What are you doing? Sitting there for a second. They're not going to like it. And you just linger.
No.
Yeah, they're going to hate it.
No.
So annoying. I'm so annoying. I'm the actual
Truly.
worst.
The amount of clients that have sat on this couch and gone, they don't talk to me anymore. They don't ask me anymore. And it's because I believe that teenagers are on one hand pushing away and on the other hand calling towards.
Yeah.
And parents sometimes often just pay attention to this. You're annoying. I don't even like you. What shoes are you even wearing? Get out of my room. I need space from you. And the other hand, they're saying, I need you. Care about me.
Yeah.
And for a parent to balance both of those things.
Yeah.
To go, hey, I'm going to give you space if you need space, but also, why don't you come downstairs and we'll cook dinner together?
Usually when that happens to me, which is every day, I'll say, it seems like you're angry. Are you angry with me?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be like, no. Because anger, I mean, this is Brene Brown all day, but, every emotion comes out almost as anger.
Yeah.
So, okay, it seems like you're angry. Are you angry or are you disappointed? Are you sad? Are you upset with a friend? And 9 times out of 10, it's like I get to it. Oh, you weren't invited to the get together.
Yeah.
Or you, your teacher yelled at you, or this person is ignoring you at lunch, and now you're having a fight. That's really what's underneath all of that. And so it's just taking the pause to be like, and I usually start, is it me? Yeah.
I mean, you're annoying.
Sometimes it's yes, but realistically, it's and all these other things. So, yeah. What else?
So I guess what I'm hearing is that social emotional learning happens in the classroom, but families can integrate these principles into their life.
Yeah, please do, parents. Please do. Because think of it from a teaching perspective, and I'll just give you more examples that are kind of SEL focused, that are benign but actually really important. And I'll get off my soapbox after this. No, I won't. I will give candy sometimes. Mm-hmm. I try not to do it as a motivator, just because it messes with intrinsic motivation, but that's another day. But I will give candy sometimes for whatever reasons in classes. And or this is a better one. I brought in donuts. It was early for whatever Christmas miracle it was. I'm early to school, stop by Publix, get donuts and juice for my class.
Yeah.
So I serve my little donuts and juice, and great, and whatever. Everybody's sitting down and they're now working on their projects. And one student says to me, Miss Hickey, thank you so much for the donuts. Out of a class of 35 kids. Mm. So I spent $30 from my exorbitant amount of money that I make as a teacher.
Totally.
And I stop by Publix.
Your time, your energy.
Right? Now, also, soapbox, who's left little napkins, cups, juice spills, they watch it spill and walk away from it. Mm-hmm. SEL is saying, hey, guys, and I said this, one kid out of 35 said thank you. And I said, you know what? My feelings are hurt. I don't feel valued in here. I feel like I stopped and thought of you in my day and did all this extra effort for you. And to you, it's as if it doesn't matter. I said, well, if it doesn't matter, you're teaching me how to treat you. If this doesn't matter to you, fine. Next day we're coming in and we're going to just work. I said, if that's the kind of room that we want to have and that what's work and we're transactional, then let's be transactional. Is that what you really want? No, Miss Hickey, I'm so sorry. I just wasn't, I just wasn't thinking. I said, understood. Apology accepted. Can you understand how this feels from my perspective? Yes, absolutely. And they know that my love language is service, acts of service. Yeah. So I had a couple of kids. Okay, can I wipe down your desks for you? I said, yes, that means a lot to me. We have to stop and have these conversations because when your boss brings in lunch to motivate you, we need to raise the kind of kids in our homes and in our schools that say, thank you for this lunch. Can I help you clean it up? That person is who's going to the schools that they want to get into, that's getting the raise. So if you want to disentangle SEL from school, then A, I'm not bringing in donuts, right? Because classroom culture wouldn't matter. And B, then I'm not going to take this pause to talk about homework that's late and how we can better ourselves and learn from our mistakes.
I just give them a 0.
That's right. So and what are we learning when you get a 0? Nothing. No one's learning anything. It's not a reflection of what you do and don't know from a school standpoint and from an academic standpoint. I should probably breathe. God, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
About SEL.
So I guess I'm wondering how a conversation like that brings your personhood into the classroom.
Yeah.
How did that shift the dynamics in that class?
Oh gosh, that's easy. They'll do stuff that's harder and more creative for me. We're not teaching creativity anymore, right? Which is what you need to build skills in the real world. So top 7 skills, I believe, and I'm going to mess this up, but one of them was, gosh.
Are you pulling this from somewhere or just your brain?
Forbes.
Okay.
I'll show it. I'll think of it.
We'll link it in the show notes.
Well done, you. Good one. One of them is, I mean, there are things you're thinking of, and they're all SEL based. Self-awareness, diversity, appreciation for diversity, and gosh, where was I going? Where was I going with this? Well, what I'm trying to explain is that I guess again, it can't be disentangled. I lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Womp womp.
If we find it, we'll go back.
No, I'm sure it was just such a good point.
It was well, what I asked was, how did this shift your classroom dynamics?
Yes. So it's important that kids are taking risks to be problem solvers, right? You're not going to be a problem solver and a risk taker in a classroom that you don't feel safe in, period.
Yeah.
Period. So you're not going to come up with a unique idea or a vulnerable moment. You're not going to try to brainstorm or come up. Now, can you drill and kill? Can you sit there and tell me what the answer is 7 times 12 square? Yes, of course. Those things can happen without SEL. But the stuff that's deep learning, the stuff that is that really matters or that's going to have you pursue your passion, et cetera, those things can't happen without creating a safe space, which is done through belonging, which then makes you a learner on a different level, on a fearlessness level, on a I'm important. What I have to say matters. So I'm going to make sure that I'm able to that I speak my truth, as opposed to sitting there and not wanting to say anything, which is most teenagers in most classes.
Totally.
Unless you have that investment in them.
Yeah.
And in their voice, and asking them questions, just like in my house, asking them lots of questions all the time in the classroom. It is not about me. I have a degree. I'm doing what I love. How can I get you to do that? Well, I can't do that unless I'm constantly in a state of curiosity towards you as a person.
Yeah.
What makes you tick? What do you love? How can I help you in your path to what you're trying to do? So I don't know any of those things unless I know you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a more holistic view of education, that this student is a person.
Yeah.
And the skills I can teach in Spanish class will apply to calculus class.
So even if you have the argument, I'm never going to do this, you're right. You're okay, fine. You're never going to do this. Fair argument. But guess what? All of the other things that I'm teaching you on the periphery, those things you are. And And our relationship is really important to your future too, because I want to see you succeed. And watch what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to write a letter of recommendation. I'm going to email your parents how wonderful you are, which is going to make your home life better.
Right.
I'm going to teach you about doing things you don't want to do because you have to do them.
Yeah. About authority, boundaries.
Yeah.
Empathy, it sounds like you're integrating.
Yeah.
And so these things apply
Always.
everywhere.
So if you have SEL based classroom, that's the magic carrot, right? Because now they want to work, they want to do right by you, and you're going to create relationships not only within myself but within the room. And that's a really, really big one with SEL that we're missing, especially for teens, is that if we don't have a classroom that is building belonging within that room, they're not able to make good connections. And if you know about teenagers at the moment, they're snapping hundreds of kids and they really don't know how to talk to each other at all. They don't even know that person. In fact, they'll snap and be really good friends on Snapchat, see them in the hallway and not even say hi. So
that's
they're
the
not,
dynamic.
They're
That's
not
actually the
having
rule.
they're not having genuine relationships, so they don't know kind of how to foster them, build them, how to begin them. And so when you go to college and you don't know, what is that now leading to? It's mental health issues, loneliness. And the fact is that this was pre-pandemic. I think it was 2012 to 2018. The loneliness, the survey on loneliness, and this was, I think, through Pew Research, I might have that wrong, was that it went from 11% to 33% among our adolescents. And that was pre-pandemic. So imagine it now.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
I believe that loneliness is one of the key factors in coping with mental health issues.
Yeah.
I think it can exacerbate any mental health issue. And in the opposite, having a community connection and belonging can actually decrease and help you move through mental health issues.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
Yeah.
So if you can have a classroom environment in which someone can feel a little bit less alone in the world, you actually make their entire life better.
Yeah.
Not to be dramatic.
No, it's not dramatic. I mean, you're telling me. I mean, I don't know how many kids who will say that exact same thing to me. It's like, I feel like you care.
Yeah.
You know, and that it's just such a simple statement. But when you're that age and it feels like the world is caving in on you, it really matters.
It really, really
And you
matters.
don't have to hug people, and you don't have to sing Kumbaya, and you don't have to talk about religion, and you don't have to talk about mental health, and you don't have to diagnose, and you don't have to treat. It's none of that. It's happy birthday. Here's some candy. What are you doing tonight? Everybody say your favorite thing about this student. And they'll just be like, I love that you're so funny. I love that you're always dressed so cool. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to build their self-esteem so that they can learn skills. If you don't have the confidence, you're not going to try a new skill. You're not going to try in Spanish class because you're too scared to sound like a fool in front of everyone. So if there's no SEL as the basis for the room, we're not taking risks. We're not solving big problems. Yes, you can do worksheets, but you can't do the big stuff that really, really counts for building those skills that we want in the real world.
Yeah. I'm kind of wondering, based off of my work with teenagers, the culture of just even a general school, teenagers are vicious. It is drama. There is bullying happening. I mean, there is a lot of dynamics happening that are really tough and mean and hard. And so you have a group of kids coming into your classroom that's a small portion of the general, high school community. And does that actually show up? The drama from the whole school coming into the outside, the relationships that are on the rocks.
Yeah.
Does that show up there? And then how do you use now, social emotional learning to, my guess is it shows up. Whatever is there, it shows up.
It's whether the teacher's not willing to address it or not, because it's there. You're sitting there in class not thinking about math because all you can think of is that your boyfriend, whatever.
He sat on the opposite side of the room today.
Or whatever, right.
Yeah.
So it's there. you'd be an idiot to deny that it's not there.
Yeah.
It's there. So how are you going to address it? Because that's a barrier to learning, any of the stuff that you just described. So when you're starting to give kids the tools in their toolbox to be able to recognize, okay, I'm super disappointed. How am I going to learn through this? Or how am I going to self-advocate? Or how am I going to take a break? Or how am I going to deal with this emotion? Am I going to vape? Am I going to get angry? Am I going to yell at my parents and lock myself in my room? Am I going to do a combination of those things? Am I going to fight with my friend group? Am I going to send off texts that are, that I don't mean? All of that stuff, unless we kind of coach them through some of it, and as teachers, that's not necessarily our place, like all of that coaching, but at least creating and starting the conversation with, what are you thinking about? How can I help you? Are you okay? What do you plan on doing about this? Do you need to talk to the counselor? Let's take a beat before we make any decisions. And I'm just going to ask you to go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, take a breath, and I'd like to see you back in the room in 5 minutes. Just that space. That might be all that needs to happen. And usually it kind of is. Or to just say, man, I am so sorry. It looks like you're having such a hard day. Can I, do you want me to I won't call on you today at all. Does that sound like a good fit for you? Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. Do you need some Kleenex? Do you need a hug? Do you need some time?
Yeah.
Those are all ways to get it done. And none of those are earth shattering. They're just important. And I have that.
Oh, you have this cough?
I know. No. Now I hope I don't get it from you. I need that too, right? So it goes two ways, and by me modeling that, sometimes that's what helps me as well. I'll say, guys, I'm really sad. I got some really, really sad news about a friend last year, and I just had to own it. I said, look, I'm really struggling up here. I can't be my best as a teacher for you. I feel bad about that, but I just need some space today, and I'm very emotional, and I'm sorry. And if you could just give me space, I need it today. And they honor that, right? So it's about being human and open and honest and wanting them to see that model too. I wrote this down because I didn't want to get it wrong. The number of teens who reported feelings of loneliness more than doubled from 18% in 2012 to 37% in 2018. So that's pre-pandemic. It's wild.
I'm wondering what it is now post-pandemic.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. And then we wonder why, how many people are receiving mental health treatment now.
Right.
Yeah. And on one hand, I'm really grateful that people are receiving mental health treatment and the mental health conversation is more accessible. And on the other hand, why did it take a global pandemic for us to realize that people are struggling?
Yeah. And I think it just SEL comes down to the point, well, a few things, but one of them is, a child's self-esteem is at the crux of who they're going to be, right? So if we're able to have them feel valued, the more likely they're going to feel valued. Of course. But the more they're able to add value is what I want to say. So the more that we are able to make our kids feel valued, the more that they're able to add value. So I'll give you a home example. If I ask my son to mow the lawn, which I do, my point is always, you matter in this house. Your help matters to me. So I give a ton of praise for him when he's finished. I'm like, dude, those lines look on point. This is awesome. He's pretty proud of it. He's like, yeah, it looks really good. And then he kind of cares about is the dog poop picked up? And now he has this onus over this task because he matters in our house. And so he feels valued. He feels like he matters. He feels like his work is mattered, valued, and seen. So now you're able to be valued in your own mind, right? Which is now creating this self-esteem. So it's cyclical.
And motivation.
It's motivation. It's purpose.
I have often parents say how can I get them to do stuff? And it's do you notice what they do?
Yeah. And have you overscheduled them so much so that there's no time for them to do stuff that actually matters and is of value to others and has them stepping out of themselves? Because if you think about a child's schedule, and I'm guilty of this, and I think Spain really pulled me out of this because their culture is not like ours. But if your week looks like you wake up and you go to baseball and you're on your way to baseball and then you're on your way to get food to go to the next baseball thing and then you're changing and then you're showering and then you're doing homework, all of that, as much as I hate to say this, I'm going to get maybe lambasted for this. The focus on that entire day was on the child.
Yeah.
Everything that whole day was about the child.
Yeah.
It was about them getting better at their skill of baseball. Do we want them to be better baseball players? Sure. But if we don't put time into them mattering as people and for them to get out of their own selfishness, because the whole day was about them, running around to all of their things, we're not creating enough space for us to see the community and how they can matter within a community. Mattering on a team is one thing. Mattering in a community is something completely different. That's where you're going to get your purpose.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to get a sense of self, drive, passion. All of those things happen when you belong to a community. And none of that is happening on a Saturday from an 8 a.m. until a midnight, where all you did all day was focus on realistically your child.
And then you're like, come home and
it's
unload
a
the
fake out.
dishwasher. And they're like,
well, they don't have time. And you know that. And you
Yeah.
wouldn't ask them of that because they've done so much all day. So I can't ask you to unload the dishwasher. That's not fair. We're all gassed. So, but the problem with that overscheduling issue is that for a parent, they're like, well, I'm doing this for my kid. You're doing the wrong thing for your kid.
yeah, wow. That's like a huge shift, but it's so subtle. You
Yeah.
know, because I believe that parents are doing what they think
Yes.
is best for their kids
Yes.
because they love them.
Yeah.
And they're inadvertently creating the problems that they bump up
Yes.
against.
Yes.
You know, my kid doesn't respect me. And I'm like, well, look at their life. You know, or look at they are selfish because it's all about them all the time.
Yeah.
Do you model respect? Do you respect them? Do they have time to even practice respect? You know, they don't listen to me. Well, do you listen to them? Is there space for listening? And I think for parents to take a look at themselves to go, how have I contributed to this issue? And how can I shift? Because I think that's the powerful thing about being a parent. You have the most power to shift the dynamics of your family.
Yeah. And I think overscheduling is something that I'm seeing happen a lot in an overachieving kind of situation that I'm in,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, well, we're not scheduling a study hall for this child. Hello. Like, so when you're absent, like when are you going to make up all of your tests? If you get sick, like there needs to be some time in your day, some downtime. And we do our best thinking whenever we're idle. So if our kids are never idle, you want them to have a passion about something sports is going to go. Sorry, but at some point, and your child's not going to be drafted to the NBA. The numbers are just not there. So what else are you doing in the development of your kid besides shuttling them to sports all day? Yes, sports are great. Absolutely believe that that team dynamics and coach and all of that is fantastic. It just can't live in a vacuum. There has to be the other stuff that goes along with it.
What do you mean other stuff?
The other stuff is community. Doing work that is purposeful, that helps you practicing gratitude, and that can be as simple as helping your grandma in the gardening again. It's as simple as your neighbor who lives alone going over and offering for him to come over and have dinner with you. Little stuff like that. My son mowing, we don't know our neighbors very well because they just moved, but these new neighbors, maybe have him extend the mowing all the way into their yard and just do that because we know they're on vacation. That kind of stuff adds up. But if we don't have any space in our day and in our child's lives for them to be able to do these other little things, which is actually where their passion comes from, right?
Like how much you feel great about yourself when you can help others.
Yeah. And then reflecting on that, having conversations about that.
Yeah.
but again, we're eating dinner from Sonic in the car, changing our shoes and socks to head to the next thing, just go. And, we've just got to be intentional about creating that other time, which is community and mattering and purpose.
But that doesn't go on a transcript. That doesn't go on a resume.
It actually does. And that's what colleges are using. So I'm going to push back. Sorry.
Yes. Tell me.
So it does. College, everybody's got a 4.7. We have like 17 valedictorians. And that's not a joke. Yeah. Everyone's the best. So yeah, that's really common now. Very, very common because grades are being overinflated. And that's kind of a systemic error. So I'll leave that one. But we've got this, everyone is like, in National Honor Society and in this club and in that club, and they're the president of this, and then they do this. But first of all, why? What if those are your passions? That's a separate thing. But in saying all that, my point is that I lost it. Lost my point. Forgot.
We were talking about resumes and transcripts.
Oh, it absolutely. Now what schools want, because everybody's got all that stuff, now what schools want is to see that you have a skill. They want to see that that you can do something, because everybody can go to the best buddies meeting once a month. Mm-hmm. Everybody can do well. Sadly, and like I said, it's like excellence is just a moving target. It's the level of excellence.
It's unreachable.
And it's unattainable. Yeah. So let's pipe down about what school your kid's going to. And there's a study that was done over 10 years, and it's not what college they go to that is a marker for their success. It's what they did at that school. So you could be at Podunk University in the South Texas, or you could be at MIT and Harvard. Yep. And it's what you did at school that is a marker for your success, both in levels of happiness and familial happiness and money. It's not what happened to you. That's not the school that you went to and where the diploma's from. And as somebody who's done hiring before, I don't care your GPA.
Yeah, right.
I definitely don't care about your high school ranking. What can you do? Yeah. So to answer that question, and my pushback is, resumes now and getting into schools, we're done looking at all the stuff that everybody else has. Mm-hmm. What can you do? What are you going to do for this university? Oh, you found that that new kids don't have a way to come into this school and feel welcomed, and so you started a new kid mentoring program in your school. Wow, now that shows me that you are a go-getter. You have an entrepreneurial spirit. Mm-hmm. You are, you've got fearlessness, and you're willing to, rally the troops and help out this person, and you are empathetic, all the things. So that's what schools are looking for, because all the other stuff is now just kind of the status quo.
Yeah. I can't put I'm a nice person or I'm a kind person
on
a resume.
But you can show it.
But based off of what I choose to use with my time, I can. And so
that's what admissions wants now.
That's what they want.
I'm telling you, get your kid out of 64,000 clubs and have them learn skills that are transferable to the real world.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's great, because I think I have many anxious teenagers striving for perfection. Mm-hmm. And that pressure to be perfect. They have a 4.3 GPA, and it's never enough.
Yeah, it's never enough.
It's just, I'm literally looking at the book next to you. Never enough. It is. It's never enough.
And they can't fail well. They don't know how to fail. And
the parents don't know how to let them fail either.
Yeah.
You have a C now in Spanish. Well, you need to get that up. Well, what if the C is exactly where they are?
Yeah. And my thing is, well, have you talked to the teacher?
Have you talked to the teacher?
Well, no, I'm like nervous. Why? Right? Because if we're doing everything we should be doing, we should be able to have that conversation with the teacher and say, or with the boss or whomever. Yeah. Gosh, I'm really struggling with this. Why? How can I do better, etc. Having open conversations as opposed to just numbers, in the grade book.
Yeah. Relationships matter.
Yes, they do, Lydia. Yeah. She's got it. She's figured it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think...
It's true. It's that. And the kids that have relationship with me, who still have relationships with me, we're able to, my husband hired one of my former students because I know he was a go-getter, that they would work and get on really well. That's just kind of how life is. Small life is all about you and I are connected because we have a similar relationship. So that's just how life works. So making sure that we are modeling for our kids how to do that, how to write the apology email, how to pick up the phone and have a conversation, how to pull somebody, when to have a conversation with a teacher. It's not during the class period.
Yeah.
It's, hey, Miss Hickey, can I talk to you for 5 minutes after school today? I'd like to stay. I just really wanted to ask you something that's really hard for me to say. Yes, absolutely. Yes. But they don't know how to do that. So we have to help them.
Yeah. Because if perfection is unattainable, then they have to learn how to make mistakes. And then what? Yeah. And then what do you do after the mistake? What do you do when you don't reach the level that you want to? What do you do when you fail? What do you do when you hurt someone? And then that is where your character comes into play. Yeah. Because we all mess up. That's just the case. And how do you repair that? How do you continue that relationship instead of, falling on the floor? Oh, I made a mistake and I'm terrible and I'm off and I'm a failure and I'm all these things. It's it's just not the end of the world. Fail big, fail fast. Let's get the failure over with and let's move forward.
I've heard of people I've never done this, but keeping failure journals, which I think is so cool, about all the things that went wrong. And you always leave a couple lines blank below it. And then you go back in and you talk, and then you write in later, months later. Yeah. Retroactively, what did that teach me? What was the learning that came out of this failure? So, a gratitude journal, except the opposite. And I mean, if you think about all the great lessons in your life or the things that changed you, made you better, are all the times that you failed. It wasn't the success. I mean, you were expecting success. So it was all of those gritty, hard things that made us who we are, where we learned all the good stuff. Yeah. So
I'm absorbing this. I feel like
take it in, sister.
I'm in this season. I feel like I'm taking this because I have recently made some mistakes, and recently just had to face that if I'm not reaching this, then I'm a failure. Or if this happens outside of my control, that means something about me. And really, I'm okay, there's gold here. This is a brand new opportunity for me to examine things inside of me that I haven't faced in a while. Things have been going great, I've been chugging along, having these successes. But it's when I reach the bottom that I really find out what I'm made of. And you want your teenager to reach these bottom points while they're in the safety of your home. Yeah. Where you say, you got this, right? I believe in you. Let's dust yourself off. This doesn't mean you're a failure. What are you learning right now through this? And having people around them that are, whether it's a counselor, an educator, whoever's in their life, these adults that are speaking into their life, that are so important, that are saying, great, share the failure.
Normalize
because actually, we don't want to put shame on top of a failure.
Right. So, yes, and in my classroom, this is this was really fun. I told them, and I tell them stuff about my life all the time, but I said, okay, guys, here's the deal. I am excited to tell you for the first time that I have put in an application to do a TED Talk. I said, but here's the deal. Here's what's going to happen. And I put it on my little warm up. Something a quote about failure, and I can't remember it right now, so that was pointless for me to say that. But I said to them, guys, listen, I'm going to fail. I'm not going to make it because the numbers, I research this because I do public speaking and I want to do more of it and I love it. And as a public speaker, of course, that's that's the Super Bowl of public speaking at TED Talk. So okay, guys, I'm going for it. They're like, Hickey, you got this. I'm like, okay, well, it's going to take me, if I'm doing my math right, probably anywhere from 20 to 30 times of me doing this. Yep. But I wanted to share this with you because, number one, all of my best stuff has come from the failure. Yeah. My postpartum depression is a gift that I still carry to this day because I'm able to understand what it's like to have depression. Yeah. That was a gift. Failure. Best gift. Me moving when I couldn't speak the language in Mexico. And I was a kid. Best thing that ever happened to me. It's why I'm a Spanish teacher. It's why I love culture. It's why I can speak Spanish. It's why I, care about diversity now, etc. So that was so hard for me in my life. Best gift ever given to me.
Wow.
So kind of just walking through some of my failures and getting excited about failure. And so every time I would be like, yeah, failure, So, and then we had like a little failure party. I'm like, okay, well, who's just absolutely sucked? Like, who's failed so hard?
Let's
just dig into some failure. He's like, I didn't make the basketball team, but now I'm on the golf team and I love golf and it's way more fun. And I play with my dad and I've been to Ireland and we played together in Ireland. And it was, all these people like,
oh my
failure.
gosh.
Okay, next, who's next? And we just like had this big failure we suck party.
Wow.
So we had our We Suck party, and it was hilarious, and it was just and everybody really owned it. And then I made them kind of stop and reflect, talk in your small groups about, and this is what SEL is, right? I took 5 minutes out of class to have this conversation. And then, of course, off we go into like our Spanish for the day.
Right.
So, yeah, we're talking about that, and oh my gosh, this happened to me, and what did I learn? So we all talked about what we learned and what that taught us. Okay, that taught me, grit and all the wonderful things that all this failure did.
Mm-hmm.
And so, fun fact, I got the TED Talk.
You threw a failure party and then actually succeeded.
Got the TED Talk. Yeah. So, but it was cool because I really didn't think that it would take that many times. So we all like made little bets, like, oh, it's going to take you 20, it's going to take you 80 times. Like, no way. And some people like, you got this. But it was funny. And then of course I revealed to them, like, God, oh my gosh, that's so neat. But it's only neat because we care about each other, and they know that was on my bucket list. And then we talk about bucket lists a few weeks later, right? Because that's important too. Like, what do we want to achieve, and how are we going to get there? And there's a chapter in my book about that too, because when you put that out there, now I'm able to help you. Right. But if I don't know what you're after,
honestly, that was such a beautiful story in your book. I really was like, I almost like teared up. Yeah. Just because of, I think I'm really entrenched in like the viciousness of teenagers, and to see the beauty, I'm like,
that's such a good word.
She said that to you?
Yeah.
I cannot believe it. But then to see, there's a chapter in your book where you make bucket lists, and the students, there's a student that loses someone.
Yes.
Yeah. And the students all come up with and raise money to check an item off of her bucket list.
Yeah. She needed like a pick-me-up. And so she rode in a hot air balloon. That was like on her bucket list. Pick me up, get it? You like that? Thanks. So she got to cross that. Well, we crossed it off for her, and wow. It was really neat moment for sure. But it's we're putting that stuff out into the world, and you don't know it until you have the vulnerability and you take the time, like I said, intentionality behind it. It's important.
Wow. Do you know any details about your TED Talk? Like, when are you going to be doing that?
So it is a TEDx Old Hickory is the branch of TED Talk, and it's in September 19th or 20th. I just got the information.
Wow.
Not even a week ago. So it's brand new to me too. So I'm going to get onboarded with their sort of system, and the press release will come out soon. So I'll have more details for you soon.
Please share with me so I can share with our listeners.
But it's kind of along in the same vein, which is what I talk about in my business, which is Action Academy, and we do coaching, and we talk about all of this stuff and how to create the life that we want, and parenting.
Is Action Academy something that people can find online?
Yeah. actionacademy.education.
And who would that be for? Would that be for parents or
both
for
parents,
teenagers?
Teenagers, 25 is probably a little bit outside of the zone, but I would say anywhere
emerging
from
adults.
16. Yeah, emerging adults, 16 to 24.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then you also do mental health first aid.
I do.
Tell me even what that is.
It's really neat. I went to a class. It's like think of CPR certification.
Yeah.
And you get your little certificate and you're CPR certified. I heard about this in Nashville and went to the class and thought it was really interesting and really, really needed. So mental health first aid. You can get a certificate. So I am doing a class for some police officers who,
That's
a perfect,
great.
A perfect faction for needing that. Firefighters, corporates. Yeah, it's important for us to be having these conversations because a lot of times that's the difference maker between in retention
Yeah.
and agility. That matters. So I'm loving having these conversations about teaching. And of course, it's not like we're getting our PhD at the end of this. You're getting a mental health first aid certification, but it's making some really cool conversations happen within the workplace. So it's work that I love.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's awesome because, like, I get to just talk about mental health all day, every day, and emotional health all day, every day. But to go out into the community and integrate this into jobs and relationships outside of here is such important work.
Yeah. And how to have these conversations. I think we all have a heart for it. We just don't know. It's like we don't have the tools in our toolbox, some of us, to be able to address it. And so I love the idea. It's like, you know, I'm spreading info and awareness. It's just teaching on a bigger schedule. That's what I'm always thinking about as well.
Schedules.
I just enjoy that work so much.
I would say for parents, arm yourself with information. If this is something that you're like, yes, like, read her book. Like, read Kate Hickey's book. I have an e-course called Parenting with Your Teen in Mind for parents of adolescents.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, take a mental health first aid class. Arming yourself with this information so that you can integrate social emotional learning or whatever you want to call it into your family so that your kids know that you care.
Yes. And involve your child's teacher. Please, parents, begging you.
Well, you're with them.
If I knew that you were struggling with XYZ at home, I can help. We can help your kid. But if you don't tell us, we can't help. And so I'm always so grateful for those parents that reach out to me and say anything. And I say, I want to celebrate the wins and the losses. So they broke up with their boyfriend. Okay, great. I know to give them a little bit of extra space, or maybe to go a little bit gently, or that they might look mad. They're not mad at me. They're not mad at the curriculum. They're not, struggling with something that I might deem way more serious. It was this small thing.
When you're in touch with them, you're like, something's off.
Yeah.
And if you're getting information from parents to go, hey, here's kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
We got in a big fight this morning, so she might be a little bit off.
Yeah. I think parents, especially of high schoolers, we don't know, right? Because we're trying to launch them into the world. So as parents, it's like, okay, well, I want them to do this on their own. I don't want to be intervening all the time and like helicopter parenting. But I will say, from a teacher's perspective, I think that the more that you talk to us as teachers, the more that we're going to be able to help each other. And that means everything with good and bad news too. I think I hate finding out, and I always say this at the beginning of the year, please don't tell me in May that I was your child's favorite teacher. Because a lot of times as a teacher, they just, especially dudes.
They just sit.
Yeah. I don't know, bruv. Wait, they just got their little banana hair. I can't see their eyeballs. Like, I don't know that you like me, that you're vibing, that this is going well for you. Yep. And so don't tell me that in May, because I could have connected with your child differently. Tell me, and also we need that as teachers. Like, we need that reinforcement throughout the year. That is fuel. We are not doing it for the money. So if I'm helping your child, will you please tell me that ASAP so that I can know that this is landing? Mm-hmm. And that's just something I think.
Because when I'm teaching first period Spanish class and they're all just glazed over, am I reaching them at all?
Or 8th period for the 5th time. Period. Like,
oh my God. Yeah, you guys just got through like testing and stuff, so I can't.
It's the most.
It is the most and the least. Well, if we have just kept people company, these are just two voices, we're friends, and they're just listening, sitting in with friends. What's something somebody could take away from this conversation?
Gosh, great question. We said so much.
I know.
Man, I just want to sound so wrapped up, but...
Well, what's something that you're just kind of still like taking away from this? It doesn't have to be one thing super profound.
The little stuff matters.
Mm-hmm. Little stuff matters.
It's all about the little stuff.
Mm. That's great. Thank you so much, Kate.
That little stuff is the big stuff.
Yeah.
That's where all the magic is happening. It's the little stuff.
The little stuff.
The little note, the hug, the thank you for the donuts, the donuts themselves. It's all that little stuff. It's I'll bookend this for you. The thank you for the class. I get students this, thank you, Miss Hickey. Thank you so much for class. You're welcome. I mean, that is fuel for my heart.
Yeah. And that takes no effort, but it means the world.
So much. Yeah. And listening to your child. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time.
This is fun.
And energy.
You're my new best friend.
Oh my
Call me every 5 minutes.
I really appreciate you, and we'll be looking out for your TED Talk.
I can't believe I'm saying that.
I know. Where else can people find you? Are you on the internet?
I'm on the interwebs. Action Academy Education. You can find me. My book is on Amazon.
Great.
So that's easy. That was
a good read.
Thanks. It was a great and so much fun to write. I think, hopefully we'll have more information about my TEDx Old Hickory. So I'm excited about that.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you got comfortable, stayed comfortable, because we are off the clock.